With that, it's also time to invite on stage none other than Anshuman Magazine, Chairman and CEO for India, Southeast Asia, Middle East and Africa, CBRE. So let's bring together Mr. Anshuman and Shreya on the stage. I know it is that time of the afternoon where your thoughts are on food, but let's continue getting food for thought as well. And let me welcome both of you. Thank you so much again for joining us. Shreya?
15 minutes is what we'll take, and then I think all of us can break for lunch. Hi everyone, thank you for being here. Anshuman, thank you very much for your time. Bhai, abhi tak wahan ka nahi hua hai. Should we start, Anshuman?
Of course. I mean,
yeah, let's start. Because I think that gang is going nowhere. Okay. Anshuman, thank you first of all for being part of the Global Business Summit. Always great to have you here. If you just have to look around you to know that India's real estate is going through a structural change. I want to talk to you about where the money is coming from, but before that, as a tax-paying citizen, I have a gripe and a question. Why is urban housing so expensive that it's unaffordable for the middle class and the upper middle class? Suddenly, all of a sudden, after COVID, the trend that you see of extremely expensive housing is post-COVID, right?
Yeah, I think that does, frankly, first of all, the high-end housing or why there is not affordable housing, that's a big challenge in the main cities. So this is not across India. And in the main cities, the reason why it's like that is it shows inefficiency in our system, where land prices have gone up. And there are 2-3 reasons. Number one, the land prices have gone up. Our infrastructure is developing, and there's concentration of development in few cities because job creation is happening there, right? And the supply is not keeping in touch with. There isn't enough incentive for a developer to go and develop affordable housing, because if you can and make money, why would you want to develop 200 apartments and struggle with the whole risk and there's not enough incentive? So I think certainly government needs to do much more. In the last budget, there was no mention about affordable housing. And both on the supply side, there needs to be enough incentive for developers to develop affordable housing, and enough incentives on the demand side, on the consumption, be it tax swaps, lower interest rate, mortgage rates for them to buy. I think that will stimulate the demand. But for the time being, I think we will still struggle to some extent as far as affordable housing is concerned.
Let's get back to our topic before people tell us कि भाई मुद्दे की बात करो. India's Build Future, the multi-asset playbook for 2030. We've spoken about these structural changes that you don't have to be a genius to know that there is something underway as far as India's real estate is concerned. If you were to map the broad trends, I would have said 3 broad trends, but I'm sure there are more than that. What would those be? The trends that are actually driving growth now and will drive growth till 2047.
See, the growth till now has come from, of course, if we look at real estate infrastructure, it's really office and residential. But what is not understood, and I'm going to take some time here, is that real estate or infrastructure is not about housing. We as a company, as CBRE, hardly do anything residential. For a country to grow, there are many asset classes, starting from, of course, residential, office. But now in India, going forward, data centers are going to be big. Education, healthcare, airports, retail, senior living, co-living, student housing. So I can go on and on. And we are so behind as a country. I know everybody talks about big numbers. We are so behind as a country compared to anybody, a lot of the other countries, including China, that we are going to grow whatever it takes for next 20 years, 25 years. I'll give some stats, very quickly. If you look at our retail sector in India, now there is huge amount of work happening in the retail. We see all these malls coming in. All of India, if you look at the main 7 cities, the entire supply of organized retail is 60-65 million square feet. So if you add tier 2, tier 3 cities, maybe 70-75 million. Dubai, tiny Dubai has 60 million square feet of retail space.
Wow.
So we are a 1.47 billion people, such a large country, and we have equivalent retail space to Dubai. Bangkok alone, Bangkok city has 57 million square feet of retail space. So can you imagine the amount of growth which will take place there? Similarly, if you look at housing, again the numbers are number of apartments which come in is nothing. It's few lakh every year what gets sold. If you look at even I had a lot of stats here, logistics. I think that is doing well. That'll be another area. Lots happening already. 310 million square feet has come up since last 5 years in logistics and warehousing, and this will double in next 5 years. So we'll be a 600 million square feet logistics and warehousing market. This year, we're going to cross 1 billion square feet of office space. Has never happened in India. So there we are, still very large. But if you look at New York and Manhattan, that has 1 billion square feet of office space. So I'm just saying you can look at the glass half empty or a half full. We have done really well since last several years, but we are still far behind. And the good part of that is that we're going to grow, exponentially because we are behind,
So the next obvious question is, paisa kahan se aa raha hai? Who's financing this? And who will finance this growth?
Yeah. So before the financing, I just want to talk about few very quickly. Data centers is a big topic nowadays, and $100 billion has been committed by people like Amazon, Adani, Google, and with all the digitization happening, IoT, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, data centers are going to be a big growth story. To answer your previous question, and one thing Government of India did really well was that gave a 20-year tax holiday for data centers in this budget. And I think whatever the numbers we are talking about in data centers is only going to be even larger than that, because I have not seen in my lifetime, in such a short period of time, the amount of capital which is being allocated to data centers. Education and healthcare, as you know, foreign universities have been allowed in India, and we are seeing many of them coming in. But the real growth will be happening in the schools, the K-12. And there's a tremendous increase in schools coming across India. We are a large country, and that will see huge activity in the next 5 years. Healthcare, everybody talks about healthcare. It's not only about hospitals which are coming in, but also diagnostic centers, dental clinics, pathology labs. There's a massive growth across India in this. So, and I can go on and go on. Airports, sports, airports. India, both will be one of the few countries in the world where there are brownfield airports and new airports coming in, besides the redevelopment of greenfield airports. So all this was going to be a huge growth. Now you ask the question where the money is going to come from. The fact is, besides the budget, which allocated like 12 lakh crores or something to the budget, we still need huge financing. The fact is we're not getting enough FDI. But there are different structures, I'm glad. So no doubt the institutional money going into real estate and infrastructure is increased. And then there are structures like REIT, the InvITs.
The real estate investment trusts are.
Exactly. And InvITs. So there are about 5 REITs right now, and there are about 18, 19 InvITs for infrastructure investment, which goes after the public markets, and they're going to increase. And we will also see REITs. Right now it's mostly office and retail and infrastructure. There will be REITs going forward in logistics, in hospitality, in healthcare, anything which is income producing. There's also private equity funds who are there. A lot of more institutions are putting in money. The IPO market, the public markets is a big area. But what is going to happen, and slowly is happening, if you look at globally, large part of the real estate and infrastructure is financed by insurance firms, sovereign funds, endowment funds, and that is not happening enough in India. So if you look at LIC, if you look at our pension funds, huge amount of that money is just sitting there. And lot of, even in globally, they put money in treasury bonds, safe, risk-free or low-risk investments. But certain percentage of that money should come into real estate. So we would need a lot of financing. So even if insurance companies, like I said, pension funds, start putting money in India, They're doing it, but to a larger extent, the money will come from there.
So, but what is the bigger challenge to this growth, to this real estate growth? Is it money or is it a lack of talent / skilled labor?
That's another long discussion. I think as a country, what I always say, we are, again, 1.5 billion people. In spite of that, one of the challenges our country will face is skilled manpower. We are still, the good part is, because we have large numbers, we are still one of the highest in the world who are producing PhDs and engineers, etc. So we'll be in a decent space, but the fact is the growth we want to, we are ambitious about. To achieve that growth, besides financing and investments, skilled manpower can be a limiting factor if we don't keep pace. And right now, there is huge challenge, for example, in the construction industry, and that's a long discussion, what we should do and what the challenges are. But it's certainly a good point you raised, because that will be one area our country has to really focus on if we want to achieve the goals we are looking for.
Okay, can I ask you where this growth will come from? We have spoken about the multi-asset playbook, so we understand that there is housing, which is on one side, then there is public infrastructure, there are schools, there are colleges, there are hotels, there is medical infrastructure, all of that. We understand that. But I want to ask you where this growth is going to come, because you know, you can look at it from the outside, as I am looking at it from the outside and thinking to myself, but Gurgaon is already saturated, and Mumbai is already saturated, and Delhi is already saturated, and Bangalore is already saturated. So are we looking at this, you know, multi-asset playbook playing out in tier 2, tier 3 cities, or will it still remain concentrated where the wealth is?
Again, a good question. First of all, most of the cities are not fully saturated, because if you look at Delhi, it's really NCR. So you've got Noida, Faridabad. If you look at Bangalore, there are peripheral area. If you look at Mumbai, it's Thane, Navi Mumbai. But the problem with that is also one of the deterrents where the tier 2, tier 3 cities are not coming up, because within our major cities, we've got peripheral cities which provides everything which a tier 2, tier 3 city will bring up. For last 30 years, I've been talking about, you know, I've been asked about tier 2 cities, and for last 25 years, next growth is going to be in tier 2, tier 3 towns. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened as expected. However, the good news is, since last 5 years, this is the first time I've seen the amount of activity which is happening in tier 2, tier 3 towns is unprecedented. So there is no doubt that future will be in tier 2, tier 3 cities. If you look at cities like Pune, right, which was a tier 2 city, today Pune has almost will be 100 million square feet office market. There's Hyderabad, there's Kochi, there's Indore, and I can go on, Coimbatore. So a lot of activity happening, not to the level it should have been, but going forward we'll see a lot of activity in tier 2, tier 3 towns.
Okay, speaking of tier 2, tier 3 cities, actually even our big metros, we are living in a world where cities are rapidly growing, right? Because people migrate into cities from small towns, from villages, to look for jobs, to look for education, to look for a new life. I want to ask you, in your 30 years of experience, have you seen that our urban planning landscape is actually aligned to that reality? Because that's not how it looks like.
Yeah, because I think, again, the challenge remains the jobs are, like you alluded to, concentrated in the main cities. Everybody wants to migrate to big cities, not only for the jobs, but also lifestyle. We don't think about the Gen Z, the young people. Besides the jobs, etc., they want lifestyle. Good part is in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, we are getting that lifestyle is improving. I think because of technology, we see a lot of people getting employed there while they be working like a remote worker or doing back-end work. And also with tier 2, tier 3 towns coming in, and especially the cost of manpower going up in main cities, the companies would have no choice but look for, if they have to remain competitive, they have to look for how to keep the cost of labor lower. And that can only happen if you're in tier 2, tier 3 towns. So they will be, but the urban areas, of course, that's a long discussion. We are struggling with traffic. We are struggling with high cost of living. We are struggling with pollution. So yeah, that all what comes with rapid growth our cities are what you call struggling with. And we definitely need to do much more. Now, there were some very good schemes or announcements by the government, 100 smart cities. There's a lot of money going into urban infrastructure. But I think the pace of growth and the pace of development is not keeping pace,
We already have a goal, right? The goal has been set in front of us, Viksit Bharat 2047. I want to ask, and we understand that real estate is going to be a growth driver to get us to that goal. I want to ask you what the government needs to do to accelerate the sector. It's doing very well, it's growing rapidly, but I'm sure it can do with some help.
I think, first of all, ease of doing business, which is not for, because like I mentioned, real estate is everything. We are sitting in real estate right now. Any structure, any built environment is real estate. From metro station to the airport to office to retail. And the ease of doing business will make a big difference.
Which means the 1,000 licenses that are required,
and
the 2,000 inspections that are required, that needs to be done away with.
So again, the good part is we have gone up, meaning in ease of doing business from before, but still lots needs to be done. And the second one, which doesn't get talked about, is ease of living. If we want our manpower to be productive, if we want to improve our productivity, we want to attract the best talent and retain the best talent in our country, ease of living will be a huge area where even government can make a big difference. And that really means better connectivity. Coming here today, all the traffic jams, the pollution, the affordable housing, all of that, and in even entertainment places, how do you attract? And we have one of the youngest populations in the world. For that young population to remain focused, productive, it's not the old times where, our mindset was we don't have a choice. We have to accept it. Today, the young generation is not going to do that. If we want to really drive our economy and our country, we have to have ease of living, urban centers, which provide that platform for young people to perform.
Anshuman, our time is up, unfortunately, but this was a good chat. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Global Summit.
I'm glad we did it spot on time. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.